Hello YouTube, Jerry Kirkpatrick here, and this is the first of a three-part series that will be on bending sheet metal, primarily for guys like me that don't have bending equipment in the shop. I have a small brake that I built back in 1995 when I was building sprint cars. But other than that, it's for guys that are primarily using your vise or clamping pieces of sheet metal down to your table or whatever it takes to make a bend. And in this first portion, I'll be sticking with just very thin material, 035, 049 and under, where we can get a fairly tight bend. And in this series, you'll only have to know or get yourself familiar with two things. One is a tangent, and the second one is pi. A tangent is where a straight line meets a curved line, and pi is 3.1416. And the pi will not be really used until the third portion of this trilogy. So another thing is you will not have to be all up in your bend deductions and bend allowances, because I'll be showing you how to arrive at either your bend allowance or bend reduction, I think in the second portion, when we get into the heavier material, 16 gauge, and we'll be using a fairly tight bend, a little bit larger radius of bend, and then a fairly large radius of bend. That will be taken up in the second video. And in the third video, I'll be showing you how to arrive at a cut length. If you're making a tank, somewhat typical of what Ron Covell made at the event here last year, how to lay out all of the tangent points for arriving at a specific cut length, so when you make all of your bends, you come out with the proper length the first time. So in this portion, I'm going to be sticking with a tight 90-degree bend in this material. This is 035, and this same exercise is applicable for 18 gauge 049. So I'm going to be making a tight 90-degree bend and a second bend, which is also 90, but I'll be using a 1/16 of an inch radius, which will give you a nice radius of your bend. And whether your bends are either open or closed, this same thing will apply to either one of those bends. So before I get over to the bender and make a tight bend on this 035 and then a small radius on the other piece, I have two pieces here of the 035 material, and I have made sure that both ends are square and that they are the proper length. And then I've written a 1 inch on each side, here and over here. And when I put this into the bender, I will put the 1 inch in so I know that my bend is starting on the scribe line, and I'll know how much material is taken up in the bend. So let's get over to the bender, bend these two up, and then we'll get over to the table and measure them. Even if you don't get much out of this bending video, at least you could buy me a cup of coffee for the insane camera setup I'll be using in this next segment. You may have noticed that when I made the second bend, the one with the radius, I used this piece in the bender to bend this piece around. But I still wanted my tangent point to be at 1 inch. And you can see here that by bending around this piece, the tangent point was no longer at the end of the piece that I was bending it around. The tangent point actually started back underneath a little bit. So the way I figured where to put the mark on here is I just took my drill gauge and moved it around until I found the one that met the nose of this piece perfectly, and it just happened to be 1/8 inch. So that told me that the tangent point here was a 1/16 of an inch back from this point here. So what I did, I doubt you can see it, but you can see, or I can see the scribe line right here, which is 1 inch from the end, which should be here. So I drew another scribe line, a 1/16 of an inch farther forward, that I could line up with this area here. So when I clamped it, my tangent point was in the proper place, and my bending leaf, which is this section here, was material thickness away from the nose of this. So when I was lined up here, the material thickness was here, and then I could make the bend in the proper manner. So let's get to measuring these two pieces and see what we find out. Now I set the piece on a piece of flat stock. That way I can line up my calipers quite easily. This one here is the tight bend, and as you can see here, this is my 1 inch leg, tangent point being right there. And you can see that we are about 50 thousandths wide, and 35 thousandths of that is material thickness. If we measure the other side, we're just about the same, 20 thousandths under. So that distance was taken up, which was not very much in the bend. And as you can see, it's a fairly tight bend. On the one with a radius, now we should see a marked difference in this one. Yeah. Here we have 135.5 thousandths, which is quite a bit more than our first one. And the reason for that is because the material taken up in the bend itself and the material thickness. The other leg, is 97 thousandths. So you can see that there was quite a bit of material used up in that larger radius. And if we take a look at the pieces by themselves, if we lay the two 1-inch legs straight against one another, you can see how much more this one sticks out than the normal one here, the right angle bend. If we turn it this way and line them up, you can see there's almost no difference whatsoever. So this side here is the 1-inch side. So there was just a very little bit. I probably, that amount is probably because I didn't get it exactly on the scribe line. If we lay them back to back like this, that might be a little bit easier to see. And there you can see the difference in the two different legs. So that is why you want to make a test piece as precise as you can in order to translate that to the bends that you're going to make so that they come out to the dimensions that you're given. Next, by using these two unbelievable pieces, I mean, my arts department put these together for me, and I think they're just great. So this one will represent a right angle bend, and you'll notice that the tangent point is in the center. With the curved piece, you'll notice that we have two tangent points. One where the bend will start at a given length. We want to always know what this length is. And then a second tangent point at the end of the bend. And when we get to this one, you'll understand what a great difference putting a radius in a piece makes. So first, with a square bend, say you've made a box and you want to put a lid on it. If you line that up right like that, you'll notice that right here in the corner, the sharp bend comes right down to the piece. So we'll make a mark right here. At the end, we know that from here to here is 1 inch. We'll do the same thing here. And we know that from here to here is 1 inch. And this is the amount of material that we're going to have to add to get a right angle bend to the outside of this box. So say you want your lid to come to fit inside, we'll do basically the same thing. We'll set this edge on the inside of the box. Look how that mark came out. There is the end of our 1 inch. We'll turn this over, slide it right up against our line, and oddly enough, now I didn't try this before, but that's just how it worked out. Came out about the same. So this must be 1/2 inch. So anyhow, if we want the box on the inside, this is the amount that we're going to have to take off of the 1 inch on both sides. So actually a 1/2 inch twice, so it's going to be quite a bit in there. So if you measure that across this whole box, that's how much you're going to have to take off of your piece, which is 1 inch. Yeah, there's the 1 inch. If you put this on the outside or on the inside, because you've got twice the material thickness, actually 3 times. You got it once here, and then the material thickness, and then again another material thickness. So I hope that makes sense. Let's get on to we'll do the same thing with a larger radius. So now we're going to be laying out for the larger radius using this piece here, so we can see easier what it is that we're talking about. So on this one, if we want to put this on the outside so the cover slides over your box here, we can't come down any farther than this tangent point. That's where this lid is going to stop. So if we stop there, and we know we have a given length right here, this is 1 inch. We'll turn this over. Once again, we'll come to the tangent point to the top of the box. Line that up. That is the amount that you would have to add to make both bends on a bend on either side. So that's your tolerance there. But if we want to come to the inside, once again, we'll line up the tangent point to the top of the lid. Make a first line there. Line your tangent point up to the top of the lid. And you can see here there is a considerable amount of difference because of the material thickness going from one side of the box to the other side of the box. Now, with using a right angle bend, say you're wanting to make something like on a cabinet. Here is the front of your cabinet. You want it to go on top of the whole cabinet. And then this is going to be a splash rail. So the cabinet is, or the wall is coming up here. So you have to stay inside this one. So we can go either outside, meaning that this edge here is on the outside of this. Make your mark, turn this around, and we want to stay on the inside of this one. And between these two marks is the amount you're going to add or subtract to get the width of the shelf that you're trying to fit. If we want to fit, say you want this to go to the outside of a piece, then you're going to have to come back here, line this edge up with this edge, and you can see that it made a difference of that much. So you're going to have to either add or subtract only in between these points, because you know which side of the material that you're working on, which one you want to stay in dimension. On both sides, it's only at the where this terminates that you have to make a filler, either cut them shorter, make it longer. So that's the square. Let's see what it looks like with the radius in the corner. So here we have the one with a radius corner, and the same if we want to make this bend and then come out on the inside. This will be on the outside, and then we'll come up on the inside here. So we'll match this side up and then bring this down until we're lined up here. That gives us our first dimension. And we want to be on the inside here. And squared up there. So we have our two known distances here, and we know that the bend to this point was 1 inch. The bend here to here was 1 inch. So here you'll either add or subtract to make up the difference of what length you want. So let's get into setback and bend allowance. This bend here is easy because we can lay that flat on our layout table or in the vise or whatever you want and make this bend. This one becomes a problem in that you can't lay this on the table and make this bend anymore. So you're going to have to bend this leg, the smaller leg. So what we can do is place this here. Just come down to here. So if in fact you can bend it in this area here, from here to here is your setback, because you're going to have to start bending here. Your tangent point is going to have to be here in order for this to come up to the proper place here because of your material thickness. If you have to bend from this leg down, then your tangent point becomes here, and this portion to there is your bend allowance. So I hope that is clear. If you have any questions, ask me in the description below, and I'll try to clarify all of this. In fact, we'll be doing a lot more of this in the next video. But if you have any questions, feel free to ask them, and I'll try to get them answered in the next video. So in the next video, I'll be dealing with thicker material. This is 065 aluminum, and we'll be dealing with 3 different radii, and we'll figure out how the setback and bend allowance is arrived at with different bends. So I hope you got something out of this video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up and share this with any of your friends that might want to know a little bit more about bending sheet metal in the shop. So thanks for watching. Please subscribe and ring the bell. I'd like to thank my patrons, and if you'd like, buy me a cup of coffee if you learned something from this video. Thanks for watching. See you later.